homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. My name is Jennifer. Welcome to Miles Away Farm, or welcome back. Thanks for joining me in my kitchen. Today I am making a viral recipe from the New York Times and Sohla El-Waylly. I'm probably not saying that right. I'll put her name on the screen. This is broccoli spoon salad, and I actually made this way back in, I think, March, because I had some broccoli in the fridge that needed to be used up, and I really, really loved it. And so when my sprouting broccoli started coming in strong from my garden, I went ahead and made it again with that. It's absolutely delicious, and it uses quinoa. Are you guys the kind of people who like to play around with alternative grains and not just do corn, rice, and wheat? I like to play around with alternative grains. This is a rainbow quinoa, so there's a bunch of different colors in here. Quinoa is a tiny little seed. It's super nutritious. It's a complete protein, which is unusual for a grain. Very few plant products, period, are complete proteins, and quinoa is, and so it's a nice source of protein. I actually grew it last year. It's normally from the Andes, and it grows at a fairly high elevation, and so there's been a lot of breeding that's been going on to try to breed it for lower elevations in the United States so that it could be a home crop or a commercial crop here in the US. It's related very closely to lamb's quarter. And so if you've ever had lamb's quarter in your garden, you might know that lamb's quarter is edible. The leaves are edible. It's a really great spinach substitute, and I have a whole recipe for spanakopita that uses lamb's quarter instead of spinach on my videos. But this is same genus, different species than lamb's quarter, to the extent that when I grew it, it was great that I started it in pots ahead of time, because if I hadn't started it in pots and knew exactly what it was, I probably would have accidentally weeded it out, because it looks almost identical to lamb's quarter, especially when it's small. I got a little tiny harvest off of it, and I meant to replant it and expand the amount that I had this year, and then I just kind of fell off the radar. But that is in my plans for the following year, is to have basically a little section in my raised bed garden of quinoa, because I just think it would be really fun to grow it myself. But quinoa, really nice alternative grain. I find it's fairly neutral. You need to rinse it well. It does have a bitter flavor to it if you don't rinse it. It has something called saponifins in it. It's kind of soapy and bitter, and so you just rinse it really well with a sieve before you cook it, and all of those wash right out. Saponifins are water soluble. But fun alternative grain. If you just hate quinoa, you've tried it, you don't like it, you could substitute anything else in here that you liked. Rice would be great, I'm sure. Wheat berries would be good, or bulgur. You could use Israeli couscous. So lots of different alternatives here. This recipe makes a lot. I used 1.5 pounds of the sprouting broccoli, and this is big enough to bring to a potluck. And so if it's just a couple people, I would suggest cutting this recipe down in half. The other thing this uses is apples. Apples are definitely kind of out of season in June and July. It's basically the end of the cold apple storage before the new crop of apples comes in. I think you could probably substitute other fruits in this as well and have it come out delicious. So feel free to do that as well. But cold storage apples, if they've been stored well, hold up really well. Or you could use this in the fall as a fall crop when you have fresh apples from the orchard, and then a fall crop of broccoli. But broccoli spoon salad, really delicious. Let's get started. So quinoa in general, the ratio is 1 cup quinoa, 4 cups water. And that's worked pretty well for me. And you can see as I rinse this here, see how it looks a little bit soapy? You want to rinse until it no longer has that foam, which takes a minute or so. Into the pan it goes. 4 cups of water. And a good strong pinch of kosher salt. Sea salt would be fine here as well. And then in the meantime, while that's cooking, I'm rinsing and chopping my broccoli. It's a good idea to always rinse your broccoli, even though it's coming from an organic garden, because you might have a few hitchhikers on there. And then the stems on this broccoli, because it's a sprouting broccoli, are really tender. And so I've got a lot of stems in here as well as the tops. And I'm picking out some of those long leaves that are still on there. They're totally edible, and so I left a few in, but the really big ones get taken out. Our quinoa at this point is done. It takes about 20 minutes, and the seed itself will kind of explode into what looks almost like a little shell. But isn't that pretty with all those colors? And then we're going to make our dressing. And so this is the zest of 1 lemon. I highly recommend a rasp grater.
And then I think the recipe only called for the juice from half a lemon. I ended up putting the whole thing in here just because I didn't want an extra lemon half hanging around. Anybody else obsessed with getting every single drop of juice out of your citrus? And then homemade, in this case, 3 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. I have a recipe for how to make that. If you're interested, it's on my channel. 3 tablespoons of a good quality olive oil. This is not where you want to skimp because it's not going to be heated. A couple tablespoons of honey. I buy local raw honey. A little bit of apple cider vinegar. And so mine was probably a little extra acidic because I included that extra juice, but I happen to like things a little bit acidic, so it doesn't bother me a bit. And of course, some black pepper. And then I'm just whisking that together and tasting it for seasoning. And that mustard is going to act as an emulsifier and kind of help hold that together. Here's our beautiful apple. This is a Honey Crisp. And because I live in Washington, we have really great cold storage in our area. And so I can buy Washington apples pretty much year round. And then anybody else try this UK sharp cheddar cheese from Costco? Man, it is almost worth having the Costco membership just for this cheese. It is so, so good. But any kind of cubed sharp cheddar cheese would work fine here. Apples and cheese, just always a great combination. This is some toasted pecans. You could use whatever kind of nut you had on hand. And then I'm mixing that dressing in with the quinoa first because I really wanted that quinoa to soak up the flavor of that dressing. And then I realized my bowl was not going to be nearly big enough, so switching to a larger bowl to add in our broccoli, our cheese, and our apples. And then dried cranberries, and they always stick together in a wad, and so I'm taking the time to kind of separate these out a little bit. And then just give everything a toss, and that's all there is to it. This recipe is so great for summer, you guys. You don't have to turn the stove on except for boiling the quinoa, and just really light and lovely. And if you serve this with a protein like a roast or grilled chicken breast, you would have a complete dinner. Give this recipe a try. It's perfect for summer. Thanks for watching, Tribe. If you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment, and share. I have new content coming out every week.